This is Stephen Lorenzo, who's facing charges of sexual torture and murder in Tampa, Florida. In December of 2003, college students Jason Galehouse and Michael Wacholtz disappeared from a gay bar. 16 days later, Wacholtz's body was found in the trunk of an abandoned car. Galehouse's body was never found. The murders were connected to partners in crime Stephen Lorenzo and Scott Schweikert, who were both charged with drugging, raping, and torturing 9 different men in an attempt to make them sex slaves. Now in court, Lorenzo told his side of the story. He said he and his partner in crime, Mr. Scott Schweikert, were practicing their BDSM skills when things got out of hand.
Mr. Schweikert wanted to get some experience, so we allowed him to do some stuff on Mr. Galehouse. Mr. Schweikert got carried away. He lost control. The kid started to scream and get all upset. We realized that the kid was going to probably call the police on all of us. So we had a powwow and we said, this kid can't leave.
Lorenzo and his partners in crime dismembered Galehouse's body and distributed those body parts in various dumpsters around Tampa. The next night, they lured and drugged Michael. Lorenzo said Wacholtz suddenly expired during a consensual bondage session and blamed it on a drug overdose. Lorenzo confessed that Michael was washed, placed in the back of his own Jeep, driven to an abandoned parking lot, and left there. In court, Galehouse's mother cursed Lorenzo to hell and back.
From one Italian to the other, ciao ciao, buona fatina. You know what that means? Goodbye, good luck. And this mother's out to get her revenge. And I can tell you right now, I am sick of my stomach just to have to look at your disgusting face. Yeah, that's right. Make a face, you creep. What the hell is wrong with you? You are a sick person, and I wish to God somebody would cut you up in pieces, because that's what you deserve.
Surprisingly, Lorenzo actually wanted the death sentence.
So I'm asking you to give me the death sentence, because that'll be more comfortable for me to live out my lifetime.
Finally, sentencing day was here. Would Lorenzo get his way?
In the words of Miss Pam Williams, from one Italian to another, ti condanno a morte. That translates to, I sentence you, Mr. Lorenzo, to death.
Lorenzo was elated.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And Mr. Lorenzo, may God have mercy on your soul.
My soul is fine, thank you, sir.
Lorenzo's sex slave motive is unbelievable, but how does that compare to killing someone because you fought over the TV remote? This is Tyrone Johnson, who's facing double homicide charges in Tampa, Florida. It all started on October 21st, 2018, when Johnson, his girlfriend Stephanie, and her 10-year-old son got in this argument about what show to watch. This is what he told investigators.
I changed to TV.
You changed the TV?
To football.
Okay.
From there, the fight only escalated.
She said, I see my son killed himself like because you and I called him back and I said, come and get.
Feeling threatened, Johnson pulled a gun. But when the detectives asked what happened next, Johnson couldn't respond.
Sorry, because if you hyperventilate, if you fast, just breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. Do it with me, ready? Just. Okay.
Johnson stated that he killed both Stephanie and her son in the master bedroom. However, some things just aren't adding up.
The shell casings are right there in front of the bed, and they line right up with those 2 holes underneath the bed.
Prosecutors argued that Johnson hunted down the 10-year-old who was hiding under his bed and murdered him there. This was the moment Johnson learned his sentence.
For those acts, I sentence you to death.
Johnson will spend the remainder of his life in jail. But a lifetime sentence is exactly why this next defendant committed yet another set of crimes. This is Mel Brady, charged with attempted prison break in South Carolina. After going to trial for killing a police officer, Brady was sentenced to 40 years to life. He was supposed to spend that time in the Pasquotank Correctional Institution, but he had other plans.
We have a serious, real bad emergency on our hands right now. An attempted escape that has led to a very serious incident there at the Pasquotank Correctional Institute in Elizabeth City. Fire set in the prison sewing plant and several employees injured.
On October 12, 2017, Brady and his 3 co-conspirators set fire to the sewing plant inside the prison. Once the guards rushed in, Brady and the others attacked with hammers and scissors, wounding and killing anyone who got in their way. Smoke filled the building, prisoners ran loose, and any guards who weren't wounded tried to hide.
911, how may I help you?
We've got a medical emergency at the prison.
911, what is the address of your emergency?
The Pasadena Correctional Institution. We need you guys here right now.
Where are all the prisoners? Are they running loose?
Some of them are. They're inside the fence, but they're running loose.
In the chaos, someone had burst a water pipe and the building started flooding. Prison nurses ran to the wounded, but it was true chaos.
If they start coming in here, I'm going to have to fight.
Okay, you're going to have to fight? All right, if you have to, then we understand, okay?
Officers described the scene as a bloodbath, with guards and other prison workers covered in blood at every corner. Eventually, first responders and a medical evacuation team arrived. They took control of the situation, life-flighted the guards, and rounded up all the unruly inmates. 4 people died in this escape attempt, but in court, Brady showed no remorse.
At the end of the day, escape versus these people's lives who chose escape.
Yes.
Your freedom meant more than their lives.
Yes. As a pack, you're responsible for the kill. But in this case, you can pretty much call me pack leader.
Even when the police had him surrounded, he wasn't scared.
I was trying to get every officer that responded to shoot me, and none of them would. Yeah, God has pretty much convinced me that I'm supposed to be incarcerated. I don't know. If it was meant to happen, it would have happened on October 12th.
Now it's time to hear Brady's new sentence.
We, the jury, unanimously find the defendant, Michael Brady, second, to be guilty of first-degree murder.
A jury unanimously recommending that the defendant be sentenced to death.
The judge dismissed Brady with one sentence. May God have mercy on your soul. Brady didn't care about the people he killed. But what happens when someone takes the lives of the people they're supposed to love the most? This is Markeith Loyd, a Florida resident facing 2 charges of first-degree murder, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, carjacking with a firearm, and possession of a firearm by a convicted felon.
Good morning, sir. Can you please tell me your name?
My name is Markeith Loyd.
In 2017, Loyd was serving fried chicken at a local takeout. He and his girlfriend, Sadie Dixon, were seemingly very happy, even more so now that Sadie was 3 months pregnant.
The baby on his head, the baby standing on his head. Got a gangster in there.
But just a week later, Loyd marches up to Dixon's front door and shoots her down, in front of her 2 young children. After that, Loyd went on the run and wasn't found for over a week, until a chance encounter turned deadly. Loyd was grocery shopping at Walmart at around 6:45 a.m. to avoid anyone recognizing his face from the wanted poster. Unluckily for him, though, Officer Deborah Clayton walked in at 7 a.m. 15 minutes later in the parking lot, she confronted him. He pulled out 2 handguns and fatally shot her.
Headquarters to all units, Bravo 20, Master Sergeant Deborah Clayton, is 10-7. Gone but not forgotten. Go with God.
That night, officers were able to ping his cell phone location to an abandoned house in Central Florida. They had him surrounded, but he wouldn't go down without a fight. After a grueling standoff, police finally got him.
All units on the channel, Lieutenant Clayton's handcuffs are on the suspect.
Thank you.
Excellent job, guys. Excellent job.
Loyd was arrested and taken to the station.
Why'd you do it? They beat me up. Where have you been hiding?
Now in police custody, Loyd's attorney tried to go with the insanity plea. Loyd, meanwhile, had other complaints.
I'm facing a gesture that then, for somebody else I have absolutely don't know nothing about. And they framed me,
This wasn't the only courtroom outburst he had.
Mr. Loyd, watch your tone and the way you speak. Out. Out.
Loyd just couldn't keep his mouth shut. He went on rant after rant, but eventually it was time for sentencing. He was found guilty of the 2 murders and sentenced to death. Loyd tried his best to talk the courtroom to death. But what happens when the convict goes straight to throwing fists? This is Dexter Johnson, a 19-year-old man facing carjacking, rape, and double murder charges in Texas. In 2005, Johnson and 4 others carjacked Maria Aparece while she was sitting in the car with her boyfriend, Hugh Nyan. After robbing them, Johnson sexually assaulted Maria and then drove both of them deeper into the woods, where they were then executed. Johnson then went on to commit a slew of other crimes, after which he was caught and arrested. Johnson's crimes were bad enough, but nobody expected the pure pandemonium that erupted after sentencing.
In accordance with the laws of the state of Texas, this court hereby sentences your punishment of death. It is therefore the order of this court that you, Dexter Darnell Johnson, be delivered by the Sheriff of Harris County, Texas, to the Director of the Institutional Division of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice.
The woman crying is the mother of Johnson's child. And then this happens.
See you, ladies and gentlemen.
Johnson wasn't the only one getting violent. Meanwhile, members of Johnson's family started fainting in the hallway. Despite all the ruckus, Johnson was taken away and put on death row. More than a decade later, his execution date finally arrived. But right as he was staring death in the face, someone came to save him. Texas federal court halted his execution, saying his schizophrenia diagnosis disqualified him from the death penalty. As of now, he's a permanent resident of death row. Johnson turned into a murderer during a robbery gone wrong. But how does that compare to planning a fatal robbery against your best friend? This is Austin Myers and his co-conspirator, Timothy Mosley, both charged with aggravated murder in Ohio. On January 28, 2018, Myers and Mosley went to the house of their childhood friend, Justin Back. Hours later, Back's dad got home, and he immediately called 911.
Warren County 911, where's the emergency? My safe is gone. My handgun that was on top of the safe is gone. Watches, it was a wreck.
In addition to everything that went missing, Back himself was gone too.
Like his room, the lamp was knocked off his dresser. In the kitchen, the tables were all shoved up against the wall. The rugs are missing.
Surprisingly, Back's dad already had a suspect in mind.
I'm thinking it might be some friends of his.
He said that two of his son's friends, Myers and Mosley, had been there just 24 hours earlier. After a day of investigation, the boys finally gave up Back's location, but it was too late.
Wednesday morning, investigators ended up here, near the Crybaby Bridge off Fudge Road in Preble County. This is where Justin's body had been dumped.
Now in court, Mosley takes a plea deal and testifies against Myers. Here's what really happened that night.
We were going to go into the house. Austin was going to distract Justin, and then I was going to come up behind him and choke him. A few moments after, Justin was trying to ask us why. He was pleading to stop and pretty much begging for his life.
But choking him didn't work, so Mosley tried something else.
Through the panicking in the fight, I pulled out my knife and started to stab Justin in the back.
Afterwards, Myers found a gun in the bedroom closet and used that to kill Justin. After giving his testimony, Mosley addressed the victim's mom directly.
There's not a day or night that goes by that it doesn't haunt me of what I did. And there's absolutely no excuse, and I just want you guys to know that I really am sorry.
Meanwhile, Myers begged the jury to spare his life.
If you choose for me to die, it's only going to cause more pain and suffering for another family. Not me. It won't hurt me. I won't feel anything. It's going to hurt more innocent people.
Then it was time to learn his fate.
Therefore, the sentence of death shall be imposed upon Austin Gregory Myers on the charge of aggravated murder.
That day, Myers became the youngest person on death row in Ohio. In exchange for testifying against Myers, Mosley got life in prison. This is what Justin's mom said about the verdict.
We're happy with it, but again, it's sad at the same time because this could have been prevented. Austin made this choice, but it's still sad because our son had to die.
Myers killed his best friend. But does this even compare to taking the lives of 6 strangers? This is Aileen Wuornos, facing 6 counts of murder in addition to armed robbery charges in Florida.
Did that affect your mind in some way, Sonic?
It was crushing my head and they were using sonic pressure.
Ever since she was 14, Aileen worked as a hitchhiking prostitute to make ends meet.
Hitchhiking, hooking, on the road. I was a homeless person all my life. And then the hitchhiking, hooking, I learned off the homelessness and cruising all over the United States of America and stuff. And so learning how to be a hooker as a hitchhiker eventually got tiring. In the end, I carried the gun for protection, but then I got where I was getting a real problem and our rent was due, $1,200 behind.
Aileen made good money, but her girlfriend Tyra made things difficult.
Tyra was doing a lot of beer drinking and stuff. She wanted to go out all the time, so she was burning up the money I was making.
Since she couldn't make enough money as a hooker, Wuornos turned to robbery. But not just robbery.
Richard Mallory I killed, and I needed his wheels to move the stuff, and he had the right amount of money I needed to move into the apartment, so.
She started killing her clients and stealing their money.
I mean, you know, serial killers are in this thrill killing jazz. I was into the robbing, just and eliminate a witness. But still, then again, I got a number, so it's serial killer.
In the span of 12 months, police found multiple naked male bodies in the woods all over Florida, and all of them were killed with the same gun.
8 men have been shot to death in cold blood on Central Florida highways, including the busy tourist route of I-75.
Police found objects belonging to the first victim, Richard Mallory, for sale at a pawn shop, and the sale receipt still had Wuornos' fingerprint on it. They got her girlfriend Tyra first and convinced her to trick Wuornos into confessing during a tapped phone call.
Lee, they're coming after me. I know they are.
No, they're not.
They've got to. Why are they asking so many questions then?
Honey, listen. I have to confess everything just to keep you from getting in trouble. I will.
Okay.
Don't worry, okay?
Okay.
Wuornos accepted that she'd be convicted, but she hated showing up in court.
The present for today's hearing.
Because I'm tired of this re-election jazz. They're just trying to get promotional ladder climbing and political prestige from this. And I'm sick and tired of this. I'll probably get 3 more death row sentences, and then I got to go to Pasco and Dixon for 2 more death row. How many times you got to kill me? You know, I mean, this is bull. They don't need to be doing this. You people don't care. You want to press on with the jury and everything else to try to impress the public. And all I want to do is go back to prison, wait for the chair, and get the hell off this planet and your corruption in these courtrooms.
The court didn't care. This is the moment she learned her sentence.
I sentence you in case number 91-463 to death for the murder of Troy Burris. Case number 91-304, I sentence you to death for the murder of Charles Humphreys. Case number 91-112, Citrus County case number, I sentence you to death for the murder of David Spears.
Thank you. And probably see, I'll be up in heaven while y'all are rotting in hell.
You will handle that.
In the some of these days.
Okay, there will be an automatic appeal. You have the right to an appeal. Mr. Glazer, is that going to be handled by you or the
Your
public
wife and
defender?
kids get.
And if you thought you heard the last of her, well, think again.
I know I was. You weren't nothing but a bunch of
Therefore, these proceedings are now
putting
completed.
somebody who was to death.
She went silent for the next decade, until suddenly, right before her execution, she agreed to a tell-all interview.
Okay, I cannot go in the execution chamber and die in the execution chamber as a liar. And I cannot go in the execution chamber and be executed under the devil. I have to come clean and cleanse my spirit in the name of Jesus Christ. Yeah, and I got to come clean that I killed those 7 men in first-degree murder and robbery. As they said, they had it right. Serial killer.
None of it was true. Because in court you gave such a graphic description of what had happened with Richard Mallory.
Yeah, after sitting around thinking how I could drum up a story.
That was pretty convincing.
Was it?
She retracted her entire story. The day before her execution, Wuornos was unexpectedly optimistic.
I'm okay. I'm okay. God is going to be there. Jesus Christ is going to be there. All the angels and everything. And, you know, whatever's on the beyond, I think it's going to be more like Star Trek, beaming me up into a space vehicle, man. Then I move on, recolonize to another planet or whatever. But it's whatever's a beyond, I know it's going to be good because I didn't do anything as wrong as they said. I did the right thing.
But pretty soon, things turned sour.
You don't take human life like this and just sabotage and rip it apart like Jesus on the cross and say, thanks a lot for all the money I made off of you.
These were her parting words of wisdom for the world.
Nick, this is the last time I'm going to say it. You have to kill Aileen Wuornos because she'll kill again.
Nowadays, we know that hitchhikers may be deadly. But what happens when the person hiding a murderous secret turns out to be your coworker? This is Martez Abram, a 39-year-old facing 2 murder charges in Mississippi. At 6:30 a.m. on July 30th, 2019, employees of a suburban Walmart came face to face with death.
Gunfire started in the parking lot, and then the man with the firearm ran inside the store.
Kind of shook up over it, really. Once people realized what was going on, they all just flooded out.
Hear gunshots. By the time I got over here with the crowd, the police was pulling up. When they ran in, you heard about another 17 gunshots.
After 20 years of working for that Walmart, Abram was fired after flashing a knife to a fellow employee. Days later, Abram enters that Walmart and shoots managers Brandon Gales and Anthony Brown.
Police arrived just minutes later.
2 of our officers encountered the suspect outside on the west side parking lot of the building. One of our officers was shot at this time.
Luckily, the officer was wearing a bulletproof vest. Now in court, Abram couldn't hold himself together.
Stop it. That's you, isn't it, sir?
Yes.
Look at it, please, sir.
Yes.
All right, proceed. Stop.
The judge forced him to watch the CCTV footage of his crime, but he couldn't face his own carnage.
Proceed. Stop it. Look at the screen, sir.
Yes.
That's you shooting him?
Yes.
Can you admit that you shot him in cold blood?
Yes.
After Abram admitted his guilt, it was time for sentencing.
In count 1, I will sentence you to death. Count 2 will be sentenced to death. In count 3, you will be sentenced to life.
Abram couldn't even face his crimes in court. But how does that compare to one smirk that sets the courtroom on fire? This is Michael Madison, who's been charged with 3 counts of kidnapping and sexually aggravated murder in Ohio. On July 19th, 2013, police made a stomach-churning discovery.
It was a call about a bad smell that led police to this abandoned home and garage. 2 of the bodies were found here. The 3rd victim was found in an overgrown field about 100 yards away. All were wrapped in plastic bags and killed within the past 2 weeks.
The bodies belonged to 18-year-old Sherelda Terry, 28-year-old Shatisha Shealy, and 38-year-old Angela Deskins. All 3 of them had gone missing that summer. Neighborhood tips led police to Madison. Days later, he was arrested. In court, Michael watched as one of the victims' fathers took the stand.
Right now, I guess we're supposed to, in our hearts, forgive this crime. It's touched our families, taking my child.
When he looked back, he saw Madison smirk at him. Then he exploded. The father was pulled off of Madison, who was escorted out of the room for his safety, and the father was also forced out. Madison wasn't hurt, and the judge decided not to press charges on the victim's father, so the trial continued. After that fiasco, it was finally time for Madison to learn his sentence.
Accordingly, the sentence of death is imposed upon the defendant Michael Madison on counts 1, 4, and 7.
He will face lethal injection. This serial killer targeted unsuspecting adult women. Now what happens when the victims are a mother and her child? This is Marlin Joseph, who's facing 2 first-degree murder charges in Florida. In 2017, Joseph had just gotten out of jail after serving time for battery of a child. He moved back in with his mother, who was living with her other children as well as her girlfriend, Kaleda Crowell, and the girlfriend's 11-year-old daughter, Kira. 10 months later, violence erupted. On December 28th, Joseph allegedly got into an argument with Crowell about Kria's bad attitude. Suddenly, he took out a shotgun.
Last week, police found Kaleda Crowell shot to death inside her home on 3rd Street in West Palm Beach. Investigators say her 11-year-old daughter was left on the porch with a gunshot wound and rushed to the hospital, where she later died.
That was our home, you know. I had to run back to the house and, see my stepdaughter on the floor and see my girl, my girlfriend in the house on the floor.
Immediately after the murders, Joseph took Kaleda's car and went on the run. He eluded capture for 5 days, but eventually he was found hiding out in this motel. Police arrested him and brought him to the station to face justice. Joseph's mother wasn't sure what to think.
I just want justice for my girlfriend and her daughter. He's my son and I love him, but I also love them too. But I also want justice for Kalada and Kara. You know both of them meant the world to me. You know the love that I have for them, and you know the love that they have for me.
In court, the judge was quick to decide Joseph's fate.
Marlin Joseph, you have not only forfeited your right to live among us, but under the laws of the state of Florida, you have forfeited your right to live at all.
This is the moment he learned his sentence.
This court finds the aggravating factors heavily outweigh the mitigating circumstances, and that death is the proper penalty for the first-degree premeditated murder of Kalada Crowell and for the first-degree premeditated murder of Kira.